Yo, 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 what up? It's your boy Rob coming back at you once again with another live stream. So before we get started, you already know what to do. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit the bell icon twice. Smash the like button, share this video out to all of your followers, and let's get it cracking. All right. So today is a monumental day. Today is episode 1 of The World is Correct, because if you ask me, from my observations, from my calculations, the world is correct. Now, what does that mean? In my opinion, the world, the reality that we live in, the universe, everything is a ongoing complicated equation. And if you guys understand how equations work, equations have to be equal on both sides of the equal sign. The only thing that can change when it comes to equations is the way that the variables are configured, which means that the world is always correct. An equation is never incorrect. An equation is always correct. That's why the economy works with supply and demand. Where the curves intersect, there's an equilibrium. Things automatically adjust. So if you look at the world and you don't like how it looks, don't get upset and say that the world isn't right or the world isn't fair, because the world is exactly what you make it. The world is correct. It's your responsibility to change those variables to make it where it suits you. And people can either observe or people can be active. Shout out to my man Mike Mellis John. What up with it, bro? So Liz Cheney, I don't know if anybody is familiar with her. If you guys are, or if you aren't, by the end of this live stream, you will be. She found out how correct the world is. And the way that she got that revelation is by losing the primary in Wyoming. Now, does anybody know why she lost the primary in Wyoming? It's very simple. It's something that should be common sense, even arguably human nature. But we'll see if people understand why. And if you have an idea of why, you can feel free to type it into the comment section at any time. Shouts out to Katsy. What up with Katsy? So real quick, ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you guys smash that like button. If you have not smashed the like button, do that. If you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that. Hit that bell icon. Also, make sure that you're subscribed to the backup channels, and let's get into it.
That was Donald Trump Jr.'s own little masterpiece there. He released the video on his Twitter page and titled it, "Bye Bye Liz Cheney." On the bright side, at least you won't have to pretend to be from Wyoming anymore. The video featured a montage of his father, Donald Trump, doing his signature dancing at various events. It was coupled with the song Na 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 Hey 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 Goodbye, which was made even more famous from the movie Remember the Titans. This all comes after news today that Liz Cheney is no longer a member of Congress. She was easily defeated by attorney Harriet Hagman in the Republican primary for Wyoming's sole congressional seat. This was truly an election to watch, as early results had showed that Cheney was trailing Hagman by 30 points. Liz Cheney has represented Wyoming in Congress since 2017, but her tenure has come to an abrupt end. It is a huge win for the Trumps, though, as they have publicly condemned her ever since she was one in 10 Republicans who voted to impeach the former president following the January 6 Capitol riots. This move and the public display of criticism from the Trump family angered Wyoming residents. Donald Trump endorsed Harriet Hagman, which, as we know, has been a bit of a golden ticket in the primary races this year. His son's video was met with enthusiasm from people who were gunning for Cheney's loss. One person wrote, "Priceless." Another wrote, "Couldn't be happier to say goodbye." "OMG, I can't quit watching. Love it." Finally, best video ever. Trump's hand-picked challenger, Harriet Hagman, and now Cheney defeater, joined Fox News once the race was called.
We started this a year ago, or about 11 months ago, and here we are with all of the hard work and the support of the great people across the state of Wyoming and all of our volunteers and supporters. We've been able to succeed.
When I was lucky enough to spend quite a bit of time in Wyoming in July, the things that I heard most often from folks there were inability to get workers, the cost of fuel, and the cost of just basic living, rent and food. No one was focusing on Trump. I don't think anyone I talked to, that wasn't top of mind.
No, inflation illegal immigration and protection of our energy jobs are the issues that are the most important to Wyoming. And accountability. We actually expect our representatives to represent our interests. I've said that a couple of times now, but that's what I heard so much on the campaign trail. To Wyoming. And accountability. We actually expect our representatives to represent our interests. I said no, inflation, illegal immigration, and protection of our energy jobs are the issues that are the most important to Wyoming. And accountability. We actually expect our representatives to represent our interests. I've said that a couple of times now.
So now here's my question. Is the world correct? If the world is correct, drop some radiation emojis in the chat. If the world is incorrect, then let me know why it is. I'm going to help you guys out with that.
Anyone I talked to, that wasn't top of mind.
No, inflation, illegal immigration, and protection of our energy jobs are the issues that are the most important to Wyoming. And accountability. We actually expect our representatives to represent our interests. I said.
So now here's my question. Shouts out to Get Noticed with Nikki. What up with it, Nikki? If you have a group of people that holds their politicians to that, and you have another group of people that continues to vote for the same dumbasses while they're doing the same dumbass shit, is the world correct? Are you supposed to be getting anything other than disappointment? That's the question. When I see a video like this about black people properly dealing with Democrats, I hope the next day isn't the apocalypse. But it may take that damn long. So, again, here's my question. Is acting on what this woman said difficult? Or is this a very elementary statement, a very elementary principle? Now, here's the thing. Her interests aren't my interests, but the principle of what she said is correct. Trump was in office for 4 years, and it took certain people 4 years to figure that out. Actually, it didn't take them 4 years because for this same reason is the reason why they put Trump in. I don't understand what's the disconnect. The only thing that I can think of is the spinal cord from the brain or the brain stem from the brain. That's the only disconnect that I could think would possibly make something like this a difficult concept. Shout out to my man, Al McCowan. What up with it, Nate G? So now, again, here's the question. Is the world correct? A particular group of people had an issue with Cheney because, like some people in the comment section said, I think it was DJ Elmo, Liz Cheney broke code and criticized Trump. What do I always say? When people do dumbass shit, get them up out of there. But instead of getting them up out of there, people put more of them in there. These people have an issue with the way that they were being represented, and they got somebody up out of there. Is the world correct? That's the question. Gotta agree with Val. If the politicians are not serving people's interests, then vote them out. Elementary. Facts. So if we continue to prop up and if we continue to support and continue to make excuses for continuing to support people that don't serve our own interests and we don't get our interests served, is that correct? Catsy says yes. AB Promotion says yes. The world is correct. So how do you change the variables in a correct world? Learn from your mistakes. Would you guys say that it's a mistake if someone is stabbing you to death and you either offer them another knife or offer them a break so that you can sharpen their knife with your last dying breath? Is that does that make sense? Because if it doesn't make sense, what I'm trying to figure out is why that's what's happening with the Democrats. Yeah, I agree, Bronze. You recalculate. You see what variables you can switch around. You see what you can replace. But as of right now, the way that things stand, the behaviors that people have, the activities that people continue to do, the world is undoubtedly and inarguably correct. I want you guys to hear this one more time.
That wasn't top of mind.
No, inflation, illegal immigration, and protection of our energy jobs are the issues that are the most important to Wyoming. And accountability. We actually expect our representatives to represent our interests. I said that a couple of times now, but that's what I heard so much on the campaign trail.
We actually expect our politicians to represent our interests. What a concept. What a concept. Here's my question. What has the expectation of, quote, whoever we're considering our politicians been? Do you guys think that you could get a Tesla to the moon with that logic? People are really out here making themselves look stupid. Liz Cheney pays the price for taking on Trump. I bet she did. What price did she pay? She's in the unemployment line now. That's the price that she pays. And she's delusional. She thinks she's going to be running for the presidency. That's what she thinks. Now, here's my question. As Liz Cheney gets X'd out of the picture, the Congressional Black Caucus sits comfortable. Liz Cheney is uncomfortable. The Congressional Black Caucus is comfortable. Is the world correct? Now, here's my thing, right? These people, let's talk about this because this is a good question, Nate. This is a great comment, actually. There is talk here jumping parties to the Dems. Now, check this out. Was this a party jump right here? Shout out to my man Torian Rain. What up with it, bro? Is this a party jump right here? Or is this like a intracultural fight? What would you guys say? This isn't a party jump. This is conservative on conservative crime. That's what this is. They said that Liz Cheney re-election was going to be a bloodbath. Yeah, I agree. I agree, Nate. Intra. Definitely intra. So now here's my question. Shout out to Cynthia. Liz Cheney's out. Black Congressional Caucus is in. What does that mean? Liz Cheney is a longtime establishment Republican. Dick Cheney is her father, and she's part of that Bush era monarchy. She's a longtime establishment puppet. Just like the Congressional Black Caucus. So now Liz Cheney's in, the Congressional Black, or Liz Cheney is out, the Congressional Black Caucus is in. What does that say? Every member of the Congressional Black Caucus still has their position, and none are in danger of going anywhere. But everybody's so unsatisfied with them. In my opinion, this is what being dissatisfied looks like. This right here is what being dissatisfied looks like. So my question is, how did they get Liz Cheney out? But how are we at the same level, actually more outraged by the Congressional Black Caucus, but they're still in? Why is that? How does that work? That's what I'm confused about. Because like I said, in my opinion, this right here, this is what being dissatisfied looks like. When you know that you're walking to the chopping block and there's nothing that you can do about it because you've pissed off some people. And the inevitable happens because those people make it happen. Now, here goes my question, right? Isn't that just a natural and normal thing? Look at flocks of birds. Look at schools of fish. Look at prides of lions. It's just natural and normal instinctive behavior. I don't necessarily believe in that whole term, like, the whole unified and collective and on code and all that. In my opinion, it's a simple survival instinct. But we could break it down and make it more complicated and add human traits to it and call it that. We could call it collective. We could call it unified. We could call it on code. In my opinion, it's just very simple survival. If someone is feeding you poison, you either stop them from feeding you poison or you reject it. But it just doesn't seem like the common sense is there. That's not something that somebody should have to be instructed on. That's something that should come naturally. Katsy says that 8 out of 10 Republicans that voted for an impeachment are out of a job. So that means that 80% of people who these people are dissatisfied with because they went against the people that they support are out of a job. How many members of the Congressional Black Caucus are out of a job? Matter of fact, they're employed so deep, if I'm not mistaken, Stacey Abrams, Maxine Waters, and Jim Clyburn actually have extended the family business literally to their family. But Liz Cheney is out of commission. Right. Shout out to Tia. What up with it, Tia? I agree with this, Val. The Congressional Black Caucus looks out for their own interests, and they carry the water for the Democrats. They're not concerned about the black community's interests. So my question is, why hasn't what happened to Liz Cheney happened to them? Because something is not correct about that. The world is correct, but something's not correct about that. Something's not correct about that. Because you heard what that lady just said. They got Cheney up out of there because she wasn't looking out for their interest. So here's the question, Nate. For one, why is anybody allowing themselves to be led? How come nobody is being an independent thinker? For one, right? Because in my opinion, people shouldn't be led. People should be their own leader. And for two, in my opinion, interests that are needs are instinctual and natural. If you're confused, you get taken advantage of. If you're confused, you get exploited. Those things happen. That's correct. We see it happen all the time. Those who are exploited are weak. Those who are exploited don't know much. So if the people remain confused and continue to be exploited, that's what happens. There's nothing incorrect about that. That's called getting hustled. You hustle a sucker. So if people remain suckers, the expectation should be that you get hustled. So where we are right now, again, you got to ask the question, is the world correct? Everybody should know what our basic needs and basic interests are. They start at the molecular level. Oxygen, water, food, and then other things. Or if you're a little bit more of a complicated individual, you can use something like Maslow's hierarchy, right? Shout out to my man, Mr. Real Estate. Now, when you say the general masses are politically unaware, do you mean the general masses in general, or do you mean the general masses of black people? Which one do you mean? Because again, what you don't know will get you got. Information has been the currency of power for a very long time. Us black people. So now here's my question. Do you see a desire of people who want to become politically aware? Or do you just see the motions? Because again, I'm looking at Liz Cheney out of a job while I'm looking at the Congressional Black Caucus comfortably employed. Yet, white people say the same thing about Liz Cheney, actually less than we say about the Congressional Black Caucus. So now, if you place yourself in a relative position and look at that as an outside observer, what do you see? Now, here's my question though. How much time is there? The racial wealth gap will be at 0 median in 2053. There's a lot of other stuff that's supposed to happen in 2053 too. If you decide to start running and being competitive in a marathon when everybody else is on their last lap, you may as well just start preparing for the next race. This is something that's very simple. Somebody doesn't do what you ask, you get them out of there. It shouldn't take hashtags, millions of YouTube videos, debates, common sense. Certain things we need, certain things we're not getting. You're supposed to be representing, advocating our needs. If you're not doing that appropriately, you're gone. People vote the same way they did their multiple choice tests back when they were in high school. They just fill in the bubble and hope they get the right answer. You can tell, it shows in politics. How many bubbles did we fill in? Are any answers correct? Biden, not correct. Obama, not correct. Kamala Harris, not correct. Jesse Jackson, not correct. Bill Clinton, not correct. Colin Powell, not correct. Condoleezza Rice, not correct. How many not corrects we gonna get? If there was a political report card based on politics that you've observed your entire life, what grade would you put on it? Bobby Rush, yeah, Professor Black Truth just did a really good video about that. What grade would be on it, on the political report card? TD Hip Hop Media just dropped a video about Derelict Eric pledging $5.5 million to the idiotic hip hop museum in South Bronx that nobody's going to be able to afford anyway. Because why they said on that newsletter, in that article, that South Bronx isn't being gentrified, what you guys need to go do is take a look at All Money Ain't Good Money #2. All Money Ain't Good Money #2 talks about the South Bronx and exactly what's going on there. Everywhere in New York City is getting gentrified. Jersey City has the highest per month rent mortgage in the United States. It's the most expensive city in the United States. So who's going to be paying to go see some damn hip hop museum? Yeah, exactly, Nate. That's what I call forced ultimatums. So when you have forced ultimatums, you need to start coming up with your own alternatives to those ultimatums. The way that capitalism works is to have a bottom class, a perpetual self-replicating manufactured bottom class that operates as a natural resource for everybody else to capitalize on. When you go to Africa, when all these civilizations in different places went to Africa, they picked diamonds, they picked gold, and they picked black people. And all of those things are still moving the world's economy. All of those things are still moving the world's economy. So then you have to ask yourself the question, why? Why are they moving the world's economy? How does Uganda find 30 tons of gold and it makes no significant difference in the economy? See, RG Titan, that's what I'm saying. These people didn't vote for Cheney. Those people did vote for Eric Adams. See the difference? So now they have a politician like Eric Adams. Nothing is getting done. He's doing idiotic stuff like giving kids paint brushes and DJ tables, while the AAPI community is getting millions of dollars. You have to ask yourself the question, is the world correct? You can do a lot more with millions of dollars than you can with a DJ table, unless you're extremely, extremely talented. And even if you are extremely, extremely talented, depends on who you sign with. Rappers are now ethnically choosing where they're going to sign with. Latino rappers are saying they only want to sign with Latino companies. I don't know many black artists other than No Limit, different places like that, Cash Money back in the day, that are really black owned like that as far as A&R and distribution. So people are outraged that this Mexican dude said that he's going to sign with Mexican rap labels when many black artists sign with kosher rap labels. Because let's not get it twisted. Most rap labels are, quote, kosher. So, I mean, we ain't even doing what the expectation is for this Mexican dude to do. So then again, you got to ask yourself the question, is the world correct? Because actually what that Mexican dude said, that's what people should have been doing so that they could have been building up record companies. Snoop owns Death Row. That's what's up. Now, here's my question, Val. We are chosen at the bottom class, right? Does it matter what some other group of people chooses for us? What matters is if we accept it or not. Now, here's my question. Have people become comfortable in their acceptance? And if people have become comfortable in their acceptance, my question is, what do you expect to see? Me personally, if people are comfortable in their acceptance, the world looks exactly like how I would expect it to look. Exactly what you see right now when you look out of your window. I agree, RG Titan. So look at how much of an effort it takes for people to be like, oh, we got to do this, we got to do that. And you know what I'm saying? We got to have these objectives and this, that, and the other. None of these people, hashtags white first. None of these people hashtagged any of that shit. I mean, they got their little MAGA thing or whatever. But they just said, you know what? This chick here crossed Trump. She out of there. Very simple. Congressional Black Caucus has crossed black people. Get them out of here. Eric Adams not doing a damn thing. Get his ass out of here. And while you're getting these people out of here, it doesn't mean remain idle. If you're part of a group of people that's presented with forced ultimatums, then that means that we need to combat those forced ultimatums with forced alternatives. Shout out to Afro Elite. Afro Elite had done a live stream, I want to say maybe last week, and it was about these AAPI hate crime, or no, it was about the quote anti-white hate crime that took place. I think it was in New York or something like that. And he showed some videos of some AAPI alleged hate crimes. How many of those Asian people actually live in the hood? That's the question. Do they live in the hood, or do they do business in the hood and do and live in the outskirts? Many people may not know the answer to that question, but I'll tell you who does know. Some white supremacist that's planning to shoot up a bunch of Asian people because they sure as hell knew where those black people were at Tops, because that's something that's important to them. So now my question is, where are those people living at? Are they living in the hood, or are they living in the outskirts? Some probably live in the hood. A majority probably live in the outskirts. Shout out to my man Al B. Black. Right? So if we believe this, that they're increasing the numbers, and if we believe that these are crimes of proximity, there's two ways to stop those things. For one, people can just stop committing crimes. We all know that there's always going to be crime in every community. So making a zero crime occurrence is about as realistic as that idiot Bill Gates bringing carbon emissions to zero. But you know what you can do? You can decrease the probability of contact, and you can decrease the probability of proximity. How do you do that? What do we always say people do? When they go down to these neighborhoods, they buy up all of these cheap storefronts, and then they extract money from your pockets, and they don't put that money back into investment in the hood. Even a place where they're doing business with you is raggedy, is outside of building code, unsanitary and disgusting half the time, using the same fry grease. Shout out to my man Ricky Jones. I don't understand why it's not common sense for people to put together a real estate mutual fund, buy all those storefronts out, raise the rent, and if those people are causing a problem in the neighborhoods, get them out of there. And then you fill those storefronts up and start business. If people wanted to do that, they would. They don't. Because it's not difficult. It's a common sense solution. So here's my question then. Why hasn't that been done? Very simple. How difficult is that? You don't like people that are causing you problems? You buy up the area and raise the price. Now, here's my thing, Nate. That excuse, as far as I'm concerned, and please don't be offended by me calling it an excuse, only goes so far. And the reason why is because everything that I'm suggesting is something that's been done to us. So, I mean, are people just busy taking ass whoopings and not learning from them? If you spank your kids, the idea isn't for them to be injured, right? The idea is for them to learn what they did wrong to avoid that situation where you have to discipline them again, right? So, my question is, why haven't people learned about the tactics that's been used on them and fought back against those tactics using the same tactics? We can say that we've been miseducated for a long time, but everybody can recite every amount of racism that's been done against us. So somebody learned something somewhere along the way. That's how people can identify it. I appreciate that, Nate. And that's all my thing is that I just want people to take a look and see that it's not a hopeless situation. These people that are attempting to flaunt, they're not inherently bigger and better and badder than you. You are just as intelligent, just as capable, and just as able to do the same things and even better than what they're doing. And see, my thing is, Al, it needs to be us that's saying something as well as hitting back. And that's something that Neely Fuller Jr. said. That's one of those Neely Fuller quotes that people don't like to quote. You know what I'm saying? But he did say it. So, like, my thing is how do you deal with the problem? You can make that very simple and then reverse engineer it. You eliminate a problem. I'll tell you what, Ronnie, if that kind of thing happens to be an issue, if you have a city council that's controlled, you know what I'm saying, by majority interest, if you have a police department that's controlled by actual community police, community minded police, and you have local representatives that are all on the same page, then it'll start to make sense how all of those cross burnings and all of those nooses can be laying around and nobody's getting in trouble. Kind of like if you're having some problems with some Dub S and you got to use unconventional methods to get them up out of there, you probably have a lower probability of getting in trouble. Because we all know that the police ain't going to do nothing about it. At least the police that the way that they're in the state of today, they're not going to do anything about it because more than likely it was probably one of them with a mask on that did it. It was probably their sons or daughters. So they're definitely not going to sympathize with you. They're going to sympathize with their buddies just having a little bit of fun on the weekend. Well, when it becomes not fun anymore, it'll tend to not happen anymore. But that's what you get when people understand power and control. You have a city council, you have police, a sheriff, right? If you had a sheriff in that area and a police department that was community minded, that cared about building up the community, you can go full Karen and not have to worry about getting in trouble, just like how people go full Karen on us and don't have to worry about getting in trouble. It can be an outraged national news story. white supremacist enclave vandalized. People are outraged that nothing was done because the people who vandalized it were found beat up next to what they vandalized. Oh, I don't know what to say. Nobody knows anything. And we have laws against vandalism. You know? So now here's my question. Shout out to Donna. What up with it, Donna? What did people learn from the whole Liz Cheney thing? Did anybody learn anything from this? Do you all feel that the Congressional Black Caucus should have the same fate as Liz Cheney? That's my question. If you guys do, give me a thumbs up. If you don't, give me a thumbs down. Let me know what you guys think. So my thing is, if you do think that, then the next step would be coming up with a plan on making that happen, right? I got a video on Blacklight Revelations 1. It's called Removing the Congressional Black Caucus. You guys should check it out. It's an old video. The question was, do you all feel that the Congressional Black Caucus and other Democrats should have the same fate as Liz Cheney? Should they be, quote, gotten up out of there? I agree. Now, here's my question. How would a replacement look? And how would a replacement work? See, my thing is also when it comes to having a plan, you have to have something ready to install right then and there. So it can't just be we get rid of the Congressional Black Caucus and then all of a sudden there's a power void. It's never a good idea to leave a power void, because if you leave a power void, somebody's always going to be there to try to fill it. And if it's not you that's going to be filling it, you might have done yourself not a favor. You know what I'm saying? So Liz Cheney pays the price for taking on Trump. Liz Cheney's predictable Wyoming loss frees her up to focus on taking down Trump and his GOP allies. So now you guys know, all right, that the mainstream media has an issue with Trump. So what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to frame this in a way where it looks like something good happened. They're going to try to make it look like Liz Cheney sabotaged just on purpose because she has some better purpose. No, you got your ass beat is what happened. Because you pissed off people. Basically, they look at Liz Cheney like a traitor, like Judas. So they got her ass up out of there. You can't be out of a job and have more influence than you have while you can actually sign policies and papers. It doesn't make any sense. And I agree with Katsy. You got to have a good candidate for every person that you unseat. Val says, Rob, do you think our people's problems are ignorance, lethargy, or they just don't care? Do you think it is so hard for our people, they are just trying to live? I think it's a combination of all of those, Val. All of them. Each of what you just said plays a factor. You know what I'm saying? And I agree with Nate. We need grassroots candidates, no one tied to either party. The only thing that grassroots politicians should be tied to is our interests. That's the only thing. Now, whatever party they might have to register with in order to get on a ballot or something somewhere, that's whatever. It is what it is. Because one thing that people don't know about the voting system is that when it comes to being on the ballot, you have to register as one of those parties, or else in some places they won't even be able to put you on the ballot. So I agree. We need grassroots candidates. No one tied to either party. However, I think they should be tied to policy objectives. Like I said, every policy should address a black specific disparity all the time. And my question is for the people that want to get butthurt, people like Byron Allen, who's a bitch. What's the point of taking a census or doing any kind of economic studies if we're not going to specifically address the disparities specifically? If there's a specific disparity affecting black people, it shouldn't matter if it hurts white people's feelings that we're talking about a disparity that affects black people. It shouldn't matter. That's the reason why they collected the information. You don't collect information about seeing who's getting infected with monkeypox to distribute treatment to everyone. You find out who's getting monkeypox so you can stop the spread within that group, because that group is the biggest threat of spreading it, which means that it's a specific issue. So now when it comes to doing that and applying that to everybody, it's fine and dandy to do it to everybody. But like Stacey Abrams said, and like Byron Allen said, they're afraid of the backlash for mentioning dealing with black. Hey, listen, man, I don't care if people are offended by people mentioning black. We didn't do anything in this country to anybody to have any kind of offense mentioning us. If anybody should be offended, it should be us. Because not only were we the people in the country that have been dealt with in the worst possible way, but we're also the people in the country who have dealt with this country since 1776 not having human rights until 1960, which is longer than the country, which is over 50% of the country's life. Why they want to try to sit here and say racism isn't a part of American culture. How is it not a part of American culture if it's been part of the United States for greater than 50% of his life? It doesn't make any sense. That's one thing that people just got to shake. Worrying about what somebody else says. That's offensive. How is it offensive? Now, here's my question, right? White people always like to use those statistics and say 13% of the population commits 55% of the crime. I wonder what white people would say if black politicians said, all funds that we ask for, we want to use those to decrease 55% of the population committing 13% of the crime. That's what we want to use every single dollar for that we get from the government, that we petition for. I mean, 13% of the population equals 55% of the crime. White people have no problem saying that as a specific statistic. So if we take that statistic and actually weaponize it and say, well, this is what we plan on doing, after years and years of propaganda, how can they refute that? Or how can they logically deny anything? They're going to deny it anyway, just because that's the plan. But it'd be interesting to see a response to that. How can you deny your own talking point? They deny their own talking points all the time. That's the whole reason why they take two sides of an argument, which is one of the reasons why I say if you're dealing with these people that take two sides of an argument, there's no point in having a conversation. That's one of the reasons why me personally, I'm all about self-starting. I'm all about power and control. Because that's the only way that you can deal with somebody that tries to take two sides of a conversation, is overpowering and controlling them. Which means that to start with that, we have to control economics. We have to control narratives. And that can be done. I'm telling you, that's killing two birds with one stone. If people can't, like, people always talk about like B1 and stuff like that, right? All right, so make a B1 mutual fund, a B1 real estate fund, a commercial real estate fund, buy up neighborhoods, right? Raise the price of the rent on the storefront businesses until you run the people causing the problems out. Because I'm telling you, that's what they do. That's what they do to us. That's what gentrification is. Once you get the problematic element out, reinvest it. Make it easier for people in the community to start businesses and maintain it. Keep it nice. Keep the upkeep nice. That'll eliminate one problem. They say that these AAPI crimes are crimes of proximity. Well, you won't have those people reluctantly doing business with you in your proximity. You won't have Mrs. Lee rushing you out of a hair and skin supply store with a broom anymore. You won't have Mr. Fong chasing you around the gas station talking about hurry up and buy. You won't have an altercation where somebody says something and then they're on the cover of the New York Post. You also have something that you could pass down to your kids. You have a place for them to work when they get of age to where they can work. They can even work before they get of age. You want to go over to your friend's house? You got to shut down the store. Instill those values. People can do that. The more money you get, the more influence you get. Scarface. First you get the money. Then you get the power. Learn from Manolo. Using your tongue first is never a good idea. So now here it says Liz Cheney lost on Tuesday night. The question is whether it was a battle or whether it was a war. Now, here's my question. This whole thing with Liz Cheney, do you guys think that this is a battle or do you guys think that this is a war? I'm looking at it like it's tit for tat. They served the warrant in Mar-a-Lago. People reacted, got Cheney up out of there. To me, it's a war. It's a war. Probably see some other things happen. Probably see some things happen with Merrick Garland. You know what I'm saying? The immediate political fate of the three-term Wyoming Congress member had been foregone conclusion. Public polling consistently had Cheney lagging behind her Donald Trump-backed opponent, Harriet Hageman, and the big margins, 66 to 30%, with the 93% of the votes reporting also came as no prize. So now, this is what I want people to pay very close attention to. This is an intra-Republican battle right here, right? Now, how do you think these Trump conservatives are going to do when it comes to the midterms against Democrats? If the margins are this wide against other conservatives, what do you think they're going to look like against Democrats? That's my question. What do y'all think? It's going to be a bloodbath, in my opinion. Yeah, she didn't just get beat. She was first round KO like Anthony Johnson used to do people when he was at 175. Yeah, it's going to be a massacre. Yeah. It's going to be knives to a gunfight. It's going to be knives conservative style. It's going to be knives to an AR-15 fight. You know what I'm saying? So now here it says, instead, Cheney had sought to characterize her race as part of an existential struggle for American democracy that pitted her against Trump. Now, you hear this American democracy so often, but what is it? I'm going to show you what it is when we start talking about Afghanistan. Instead, Cheney had sought to characterize her race as a part of an existential struggle for American democracy that pitted her against Trump. Her closing ad featured her father, which probably was not a good idea, former Vice President Dick Cheney, speaking straight to the camera and insisting that in our nation's 246-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. That's a little bit much, in my opinion. I mean, that's a little bit much. Shout out to Nate and Val for answering the Nightbot. Appreciate it. I agree, Cameron. Her remarks after her defeat on Tuesday, Cheney returned to this message, showing willingness to target Trump and Republicans who abet him. 2 years ago, I won this primary with 73% of the vote, she said. Well, like Notorious Big said on Ready to Die, things done changed. She better sling, crack, rock, or develop a wicked jump shot. She better sling, crack, rock, or develop a wicked jump shot. I could have easily done the same again. Yeah, that's what people say when they're not satisfied with how things turned out. Yeah, I know, right, Val? Dick Cheney saying that is laughable. Yeah, his democracy is where the oil at. You know what I'm saying? Where the oil at? You know what I mean? The path was clear, but it would have required that I go along with President Trump's lie about the 2020 election. It would have required that I enabled his ongoing efforts to unravel our democratic system and attack the foundations of our republic. That was a path I could not and would not take. But she had no problem with her father doing the same thing overseas. Cheney repeatedly referenced the Civil War and drew comparisons to the political climate in the United States. That's interesting. So again, we got another conservative, Cheney, who's on a different side of the conservative spectrum, talking about a civil war, which I find fascinating. I find that fascinating. You know what I'm saying? Because it's amazing to me how many white politicians talk about the Civil War. And I got to ask these white politicians the same question that they ask us. I mean, how were you affected by the Civil War? The only thing that I could think of as far as the Civil War affecting white politicians and white people is it cost them money. They lost money. They lost money funding the military. They lost money funding the war. And they lost money on the plantations that they owned in the South. Racism is a bipartisan effort. Despite what many conservatives want to tell you to feel better about themselves, it wasn't just Democrats. Not just Democrats benefited from Jim Crow. Jim Crow didn't say blacks to this water fountain and white Democrats at this water fountain. That's not what it said. It said blacks and over here, whites over there. It didn't say shit about no damn party lines. So now here it says our nation is barreling once again towards crisis, lawlessness and violence, she said. I mean, I don't know what she's been missing. I don't know if she's been reading her own FBI reports, but the United States has some of the highest crime in the world, and we have the most people incarcerated of any nation. So it's not barreling towards anything, it's already here. She went on to seemingly declare war on much of the Republican Party, which has nominated candidates who have echoed Trump's false claims about the 2020 election across the country by adding, no Americans should support election deniers for any position of genuine responsibility. Cheney got her loudest applause toward the end of her remarks when she told the crowd, I have said since January 6th, I will do whatever it takes to ensure Donald Trump is never again near the Oval Office, and I mean it. In contrast, a Trump spokesperson released an edited video on Twitter of the former president dancing to the late 1960s hit, Nah Nah Hey Hey Kiss Him Goodbye. And that's what we just watched now. And I think that was his son. I think that was Eric Trump who released that. So now this is what's important right here. A long-running internal conflict. Now, what many people don't understand, or many people aren't aware of, is that there's many long-running internal conflicts. You guys know that the socialists and the progressives and the establishment Democrats are all having beef with each other. None of these people are getting along. But what I find fascinating is that throughout them not getting along, there's certain things that they can all unify on. What are those things that they can all unify on? You know them. Everybody knows them. Between a long-running internal conflict between factions of the Wyoming Republican Party deeply colored how voters in the cowboy state made up their minds about Cheney's race. But it captured national attention as the referendum on Trump's standing and pull with the GOP. After all, Cheney, the daughter of former vice president and former chair of the House Republican Conference, had seemingly impeccable conservative credentials, save, of course, her vocal, virulent opposition of Trump in aftermath of January 6th attack on the Capitol. She was one of 10 House Republicans who voted to impeach the former president and became a total apostate when she became the vice chair of the January 6th committee. So now my question for everybody is, what does that say? Oh, what just happened here? Hold on real quick. Oh, look at this. Vice see, this is what I'm talking about these websites here. Vice just crashed. Hold on real quick. Or not Vice, Vox. All right, there we go. You guys able to see that? Shout out to my man Keldrick Crowder. What up with it, bro? And real quick, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys haven't smashed that like button, please take a moment and make sure that you guys smash that like button. So now, this is like betrayal. See, she was cool and she had the conservative credentials until her vocal, virulent opposition to Trump in aftermath of January 6th attack on the Capitol. She was one of 10 House Republicans who voted to impeach the former president and became a total apostate when she became the vice chair of the January 6th committee. She was the vice chair. So my question is, did she betray those conservatives? Shout out to my man Jay Fields. What up with it? If you guys feel that she betrayed those conservatives, give me a thumbs up. If you guys don't feel that she betrayed those conservatives, give me a thumbs down. So now what I want to show you guys is that that's what betrayal gets you. with them. I mean, she's supposed to be a Republican. She decided to become the leader of the effort to persecute Trump. Look what happened to her. They got her up out of there. And the media is coming up with this savior story that she's going to somehow rebound and compete for the presidency. She's not going to compete for the presidency at all. I'm going to tell you that right now. There's not going to be any competition. Katsy said, like I said earlier, 8 out of 10 who voted to impeach are gone. That's a fact. That means that 80% of those people are up out of there. My man Cameron Jones says, why can't we operate like them? We can. But you know what it takes? Tenacity, ambition, dedication, a thirst for interest in information, negotiation, and camaraderie, and follow through. Follow through translates to legacy on a long term. Legacy translates to culture on even a longer term. I think one of the first steps that people should do is to establish boundaries. Because, see, this may be a severe overstep of a boundary, but right here, this shows the limits of what these people will tolerate. My question is, have we established the limits of what we'll tolerate on a unified basis? See, now you know. If you're a Republican, don't cross Trump. Why not? You'll be in the unemployment line or worse. Consequences. There's a consequence. So now here it says, through this lens, Cheney's loss is certainly a setback for the never Trump forces within the Republican Party, but leaves the Wyoming Congress members' ongoing fight to make Trump persona non grata within the GOP unresolved. That's never going to happen, in my opinion. There's no one who can do that as of right now, in my opinion. So now here's the, and see that, you know what you should have, you know what you should have done? When your dad said that, Cameron, you should have asked him, well, then why did black people vote for him? Black people's biggest issue with white politicians is that they don't do anything for black people. So my question would be, the biggest issue is not that they're white, it's that they're not doing anything for black people. What's the difference between that and a black person who's not doing anything for black people? That's how they get people with that first black trick bag. Oh, he's the first black president. Okay, so what? You want a t-shirt? You know what I'm saying? What's the difference? And the thing that's more problematic is those black or and those Democrat politicians who won't do anything for black people. They actually, in my opinion, tend to be more problematic because they go overboard with targeting black people to try to somehow make it look as if they're not showing any favoritism, which they're never showing any favoritism anyway. Because how do you show favoritism when you don't do shit for somebody? I'm gonna be hard on these, but I'm gonna make sure that black people know that I'm not here to do anything special for them. I mean, you never hear other politicians saying that because it's just a given that they're not gonna do anything. But Democrats pay very close attention. Democrats always make it a point. Always. They always make it a point. It's almost as if they're getting points for making the point of how little or what they're not going to do for black people. We're going to make sure our LGBTQ community does not get stigmatized by monkeypox. We're going to make sure of that for the LGBTQ community. But what I can definitely tell you is that we're not going to do a damn thing for black people. You see how nobody gets offended by that? That's one of the reasons why, if you're not subscribed to Black Light Revelation, the C19 report, take a moment and make sure you subscribe to that channel and check out the monkeypox coverage. Because while people think that I'm joking, there's a reason why I'm talking about it that way. I want people to pay attention to what's not there instead of paying attention to what's there. If we live in a world where the mirages and the holograms and the tricks are what's put in front of your face, it shouldn't be what you see. You should be looking for what you don't see. And what you don't see is anybody criticizing the monkeypox efforts that are specifically being addressed to the LGBTQ community, which has now been changed to sexual networks or men who have sex with men. But let there be something that black people simply ask about. It's a national outrage, so much to the point that black politicians are scared that it'll be their political casket closing if they happen to mention black. But I thought we were all American. Shout out to Coffee. What up with it, Coffee? So pay very close attention. And in my opinion, some of those politicians need to be held accountable for that. Just like how this lady here said, we hold politicians accountable. Okay. Yeah, sure. I mean, I know you full of shit, but you sound good. Sound like something I might steal. Yeah, we need to hold politicians accountable. You know what I'm saying? I agree. Think tanks, economic reports, the census. Every single disparity should be a committee. That's how you deal with those problems. You set up a committee based on problems. Alcohol, tobacco, firearms. That was a problem. Committee set up. Environmental Protection Agency. Well, the environment's getting fucked up. So we set up an agency for it. Now, if you read the alleged anti-Semitic book, The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, they'll tell you that those, quote, committees were set up for different purposes. They may or may not be right or wrong. You got to read it for yourself. But for these purposes here, in my opinion, to address disparities might not be a bad idea. That's why you need think tanks. That's why you need to get your own data. That's why people need to come up with and understand the definitions and calculations of how they come up with statistics. Someone can say silly statistics that don't mean anything, and because people don't know the definitions, they'll just let it slide. Just like how they tried to say minorities are dealing with the worst cases of monkeypox, or minorities are being disproportionately affected by monkeypox. Well, if there's a world where all populations are not equal in number, somebody's always going to get disproportionately affected because there's never going to be an equal proportion across all populations. Somebody's always going to be disproportionately affected. You know what I'm saying? My YouTube video is disproportionately affected right now. Did you guys know that? I have 88 total views, 34 live viewers, and 37 likes. In order for my YouTube video to be proportionate, it would have 88 views, 88 live viewers, and 88 likes. But see, I could now say my YouTube video is disproportionately affected by viewer behavior. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. But I could say it to maybe encourage people to feel the urgency to engage more. And it sounds good and it's believable. Mathematically, it's true, but does it mean anything? No. It doesn't. And that's a fact, Bronze. That's the same C-19 stuff they tried to sell us. Not allowed to talk about injectable immunities. You got the polio that's come back as a result of particular kinds of immunities. Right on the cover of the Mercury Times. You know what I'm saying? So now here it says Cheney will have 5 more months to pursue her work on the January 6th committee without a campaign hanging over her head. Then as Ahab pursued Moby Dick after leaving the Pequod for a whaling boat, she will be able to, look at this, continue to target Trump even as a private citizen without her seat in Congress. So what this is about is Liz Cheney being able to target Trump. I mean, anytime it's something bad, it's something black, right? But see, what people don't know is 75% of the global monkeypox infections are white males. But if we talk about all the disproportionate stuff, you'll never get to that. And that's information that can be cited in the New England Journal of Medicine, because I know there's some trolls lurking. So instead of interfering with my video and my video chat, you can go look up that statistic and use it to try to slow the spread of that disease and never say that I didn't do anything to help you. So now here it says Cheney has further built up her national profile in the past 2 years as the leading Republican opponent of Trump and will be able to draw on an array of major donors opposed to Trump, as well as a formidable campaign war chest. Look at this. With over $7 million still on hand only weeks before the primary. $7 million. Now, here's my question. If we wanted to start making some moves like this, how much do we have on hand? I don't think we have very much on hand now. But if we bought those storefronts, got people up out of there, and started making some viable businesses, we might have a lot of change, you know what I'm saying, that we could donate to somebody who wanted to be a grassroots politician. You know what I'm saying? See, that's how all of those things work together. This is one of the reasons why I tell people, you need to, the war is through information. The war is through business. Physical war is outdated, in my opinion. War of attrition and war of strategy and the meeting of the minds is a more modernized look for warfare, in my opinion. Real quick, ladies and gentlemen, we got 32 live viewers. Shout out and appreciate all 32 people that are watching. And we got 37 likes. If everybody takes a moment and smashes that like button, It'll get us up to 69, which would be great because we got that goal of 100 and we getting there. So please make sure y'all help your boy out by smashing that like button. So now here it says whether it's via what is this? This is Val right here. This is all Val right here. Whether it's via a super PAC or a kamikaze presidential campaign or something else, Cheney has more options than a typical anti-Trump Republican who leaves Congress for a cable news gig. Now, how does that work? Leaves Congress for a cable news gig, and we're going to sit up here and say that our media isn't state-sanctioned media? Let me ask you guys this. If our media isn't state-sanctioned media, then why is it that Biden's former press secretary and Trump's former press secretary work on opposing news shows? You guys should look into the declassified documents, but be careful because they might send a warrant to your house. That's what happened to Trump. Look into the declassified documents called Operation Mockingbird, Operation Monarch, Operation MK Ultra, and look at how much government infiltration at the strategic levels is within mainstream media. The media may as well just be the marketing department, the propaganda arm of the government. It may as well be. If it's not, what else is it? They tell us that we should be at war with Ukraine. They tell us that we should behave a certain way when we get sick. They tell us what kind of lifestyles we should and shouldn't accept. I mean, you remember back in the day on those TV shows when they used to say, and now back to your regularly scheduled programming? Makes you revisit all of that in your head, doesn't it? Your regularly scheduled programming. What were they programming you with that whole time? You know what I'm saying? This is PBS, Public Broadcasting System, your children's programming. What were they programming your kids with? That's why I always tell people, run them families. That's funny because now that you said that, they actually kind of look alike. So now here it says, while Cheney reaffirmed I'm a conservative Republican in her remarks on Tuesday, she pitched herself to a nonpartisan audience of all Americans opposed to Trump. And there we have it again. Karenization of the Democrat Party. There was a girl in Pennsylvania, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that did a genetics project on all of the presidents, and it showed that all of them were related. Is anybody surprised? And if you think that's an accident, I guarantee you that all the world's leaders are related. I bet you that all the world's leaders are related to everybody except for the people that they rule over. I bet you that. Now people should think about that. So now here it says, let us resolve that we will stand together. Look at this. Look at this. Let us resolve that we will stand together. Let us get on code real quick. Republicans, Democrats, and independents against those who would destroy our republic. Notice how she didn't mention Trump. She just said against those who would destroy our republic. What is that? What do they mean by that? Putin and Ping are related for sure, huh? That's what you think, Bronze? They could be. They're both quote Asian. They're both quote Asian. You know what I'm saying? So now here it says local factors mattered in Tuesday's race. Wyoming has seen a long-running internal conflict between more traditional GOP establishment and a more ardently conservative new grad within the party. Cheney, as the daughter of former vice president, was destined by birth to be in the first camp. She had personal baggage as well. Her crusade against Trump alienated Wyomingites, not just because they were diehard MAGA loyalists, but because it seemed like her neglecting key local and parashakal issues for national spotlight. So pay very close attention to this. Now, I got a question for you guys. Have you ever seen the mainstream media focus and concentrate and write anything about what black politicians, regardless if it's a black Democrat or if it's a black conservative, do they ever talk about the issues that they don't address? Think very closely. Take a moment. Think long and hard about that. You know what I'm saying? Have you ever heard the media criticize black conservatives or black Democrats about what issues it is that they don't address? Now, they do a lot of ad hominem attacks. They do a lot of popular talking points, but they never go into specifics about what's not addressed. Have you ever noticed that? Facts. Nope. Controlled opposition. It's their asset. Facts. If you guys agree with Jay, give me a thumbs up. If you disagree, give me a thumbs down. That's a fact. Which is one of the reasons why they have an issue with Russia. That's another story for another day. Hageman's ads didn't just hit Cheney for being anti-Trump. They also used that as a way to indicate that the three-term incumbent was out of touch with voters. You never hear anything on TV about Democrats or black politicians being out of touch with voters. So how would anybody ever know? Other than those of us who pay attention, to politics on our own, or those of us who follow things like the new black media or even independent journalists. When have you ever heard them criticize black politicians in that way? Think about it. Oh, these black politicians, they're doing so well with criminal justice reform. Okay. Last time I checked, despite the fact that, we all know that the criminal justice system is racist, it doesn't say black only on the jails. So I don't understand how criminal justice is a black specific thing that we should just, fall out and roll around and say thank you for. Oh, there's these lovely healthcare efforts. Okay. I mean, everybody gets sick. I don't care about criminal justice reform. If we're going to talk about criminal justice, then why not talk about criminal justice disparities, not criminal justice reform? Notice how they always talk about criminal justice reform. Does that mean making a bunch of white people rich from marijuana sales? Because that's the only criminal justice reform I've seen is now people aren't getting locked up for marijuana, and there's a bunch of white billionaires because of marijuana. And black people still broke. But more black people were getting locked up for selling it, but white people was billionaires off of it. I don't understand that. Actually, I do. I mean, that is really reforming criminal justice. Yeah. A very twisted way, but is a reforming of it nonetheless. So my question is, why doesn't the white media ever criticize the disconnect between black politicians and black people? And when I say black politicians and black people, let's just make sure that everybody can share in offense. I'm talking about black conservatives and black Democrats. Why is it that the media protects those people? When is the last time you saw the media go around and ask a bunch of black people in these Democrat areas, how do you feel that you're being represented? You don't even see that. At least Fox will do something, they'll do something phony and at least put a couple black people on the screen and, they'll say something crazy like, yeah, I love the KKK. They'll find like 3 or 4 black people like that on Fox. You know what I'm saying? I mean, at least they try to make the shit phony. NBC, MSN, MSNBC, they never do it. So how would anybody ever know that there's a disconnect unless you know what I'm saying, decide to tune into a TD Hip Hop Media video, or unless you decide to listen to a Professor Black Truth video, or unless you decide to listen to a video that Torian Rain made? How would you know? The Mayo stream media doesn't ever say anything about it, interestingly. So now here it says Cheney has also raised the ire of local Republicans in 2013 when she launched an abortive primary campaign against incumbent Senator Mike Enzi that was heavily focused on her family legacy. Run me that family. So y'all be thinking that I'm joking and shit. But there's always a knockout punchline to my jokes. Cheney is the first federal incumbent in Wyoming to lose a primary since another political scion, William Henry Harrison III, lost his primary for Congress in 1968. While Harrison did have a notable political genealogy, his grandfather and great-grandfather both served as president. He had little else in common with Liz Cheney. Former Wyoming Governor Mike Sullivan, a Democrat, recalled him as sort of a weak link and didn't think that there was any comparison to Cheney, for whom he changed his party registration to vote on Tuesday. You see that? Got on code real quick. Changed that party registration. You see that? I appreciate that, Val, and that's facts. Me too. I also look at the mainstream media to critique it, because in most cases it's wrong, in my opinion. Like, for instance, this article right here. You guys ready to get a good laugh? Already, mainstream media is doing the presidential campaign preliminary work for Liz Cheney. She considers a run for president after Republican Party defeat. Well, she must be running her ass out of Wyoming on fire. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny, but like, who cares? You just lost. Are you considering that you lost? You know what I'm saying? Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney has announced that she is considering her own run for the White House in an all-out effort to prevent Trump from winning another term as U.S. president. Now, I'm not trying to be funny, and I'm not a Trump supporter, but if Liz Cheney thinks that she's going to beat Trump, she's delusional. Now, that's delusion right there. Take a picture. You know what I'm saying? Screenshot this. Let me run this back real quick. Let me run this back. Liz Cheney considers run for president after Republican primary defeat. What y'all think about that? This shit's so garbage, it'll made my numbers go down. This up here looking so bad, it made my numbers go down. You know what I'm saying? You got to take risks like that. In order to have a legacy of being a great youth, in order to build a legacy of being a great YouTuber, you got to take risks like that. You know what I'm saying? So now here it says Cheney decisively lost her Republican primary race on Tuesday night, and she will lose her seat in the U.S. Congress. So she's out of there. She's going to lose her seat in Congress, and she lost that race. I got to agree with Ricky. That's just the facts. Jim Crow not beating Trump. I don't honestly, if Trump can make it through all of this stuff they putting in front of him, I don't think anyone's going to beat Trump. Unless they try to get him out of there, like with some type of assassination attempt or something like that. I can see him doing 8 years. You know what I'm saying? Unless something severely insane happens. It's all good to you. Welcome back. I appreciate you, Rick. So, the Trump-backed challenger, Harriet Hagman, beat Cheney by almost 40 points. This is what Kathy was talking about. As Wyoming voters took revenge. You see this? They took revenge for her voting to impeach Trump and focusing on her role on the January 6th House Select Committee. They took revenge. You see that? The Trump-backed challenger, Harriet Hagman, beat Cheney by almost 40 points as Wyoming voters took revenge for her voting to impeach Trump and for focusing on her role on the January 6th Select Committee. Now, I know Carla and DJ Elmo and Val and Bronze were around when we were talking about revenge voting. You guys remember that? How many of you guys remember that? Way earlier in the year, we talked about the revenge vote. And I said, how come people don't do that? Here's an example of people doing that. Yeah, she got that ass kicked. You know what I'm saying? See, they did it here. The Trump-backed challenger, Harriet Hagman, beat Cheney by almost 40 points as Wyoming voters took revenge for her voting to impeach Trump and for focusing on her role on the January 6th House Select Committee. The panel, of which Cheney is vice chair and one of only 2 Republicans, is investigating Trump's role fomenting the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol by his supporters on January 6th of 2021 in a vain attempt to stay in office following his defeat by Joe Biden. Cheney was asked on NBC's Today Show on Wednesday morning whether she was thinking of running for president. She did not respond to the question directly, but when pressed the second time, she admitted she was. What do you guys think about that? She not gonna, I don't know why she's wasting her time. It's something I'm thinking about, and I'll make a decision in the coming months, she said. On Tuesday night, she said she would do whatever it takes to keep Donald Trump out of the Oval Office after her loss to Hageman by almost 60,000 votes was confirmed. Aides revealed the former House number 3 planned to set up her own political action committee. In coming weeks, Liz will be launching an organization to educate the American people about the ongoing threat to our republic and to mobilize a unified effort to oppose any Trump campaign for president, Cheney spokesperson Jeremy Elder told Political Playbook. NBC confirmed on Wednesday that it will be named The Great Task, which was the title of Cheney's final pitch to Wyoming voters and features in the closing sentence of Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. On Wednesday, Cheney laid out her priorities for the next few months before leaving the House in January. Let's check this out.
Congresswoman Liz Cheney facing the potential end of her career on the Hill as she trails her Republican challenger by nearly 30 points days before her state's primary election. Rich Edson is live from the campaign trail in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Hey, Rich.
Hi, Griff. This is the final push here, the marquee matchup between a Trump-backed candidate and Congresswoman Liz Cheney. She is the vice chair of the January 6th committee. She has been a vocal critic of former President Donald Trump, even calling him a domestic threat to the United States. Cheney is trailing big time, according to a recent University of Wyoming poll. The Trump-backed candidate, Harry.
Look at how bad Liz Cheney was getting. She's now gotten her ass kicked. But look how bad she was getting her ass kicked. Look at that. That's wild. Revenge voting. They wanted to get her out of there because she betrayed the party. She betrayed the people of Wyoming. That's how they feel. And it shows. It shows in the math. That's a good question, Cameron. I don't know how you vote for undecided. Yeah, I don't know.
Harriet Hageman, she's an attorney and former candidate. She's opened up a substantial lead on Cheney of about
shout out to Nate and RG Titan for answering the Nightbot.
Support among other candidates and 10% undecided. The rodeo is also in Cheyenne. We spoke to voters there last night about the Trump factor in this race. One pastor told us
look, you see that? She tried. That's her trying to hang on to that election. That election is getting away from you. Look at
Cheyenne. We spoke
Come on, hold on to it now.
Voters there last night about Trump factor in this race. One pastor told us the former president's approach to picking Supreme Court justices, pro-life.
Oh, threw her off. See? she let the election get away from her. You know what I'm saying? Right at the end there. You know what I'm saying? Couldn't hold on.
Support of Israel and education all motivates his vote.
Damn.
I've never seen anybody stronger on some of those issues that I preach about, you know, and he was right on all those issues in my opinion.
Y'all want to see the replay of the election again? Here it go right here. See, you see the score, you see the percentage. Now they're about to show some live video footage. Here it go.
The rodeo is also in Cheyenne. We spoke to voters there last night about the Trump factor in this race. One pastor told us the former president's approach to picking Supreme Court justices, pro-life, support of Israel, and education all motivates his vote.
I've never seen anybody stronger on some of those issues that I preach about, you know, and he was right on all those issues in my opinion.
So his endorsement matters.
Yeah, it matters.
I think that endorsement is a load of bull hockey. I don't think that it's necessary because we should be looking at what these people are standing for.
Nah, that wasn't her on that horse. That's bull hockey. I'm about to start saying that. What is bull hockey? Like when there's some bullshit on the ground and you hit it around with a hockey puck or some shit? Nah, that wasn't her. That was some rodeo dude, some cowboy.
Part of getting Cheney renominated is to convince Democrats and independents to register as Republicans and vote in this primary. Voters may do that here. The Wyoming Secretary of State says since January, the number of registered Republicans is up more than 11,000.
You see, do you guys hear that? These are the important stats that people need to pay attention to. Since January, now this is in Wyoming, the number of registered Republicans is up more than 11,000. You want to see it again? We should start reacting to rodeos. You know what I'm saying? Look at that shit. There it is right there.
Candidates and 10% undecided. The rodeo is also in Cheyenne. We spoke to voters there last night about the Trump factor in this race. One pastor told us the former president's approach to picking Supreme Court justices, pro-life, support of Israel, and education all motivates his vote.
See, I'm just not going to do some shit like that. I'm not getting on no wild bucking ass horse and twist my damn arms all out of socket and shit. I'm not doing it. There's nothing that looks fun about that to me. Now, I'll get on a horse as long as it's acting normal and shit, but I ain't doing all that. One of these days, it hasn't happened yet. Somebody's arm gonna come right off. Their body gonna go flying, and their arm gonna still be stuck holding on to the horse. Just watch.
I've never seen anybody stronger on some of those issues that I preach about, you know, and he was right on all those issues in my opinion.
So his endorsement matters.
Yeah, it matters.
I think that endorsement is a load of bull hockey. I don't think that it's necessary because we should be looking at what these people are standing for.
Part of getting Cheney renominated is to convince Democrats and independents to register as Republicans and vote in this primary. Voters may do that here. The Wyoming Secretary of State says since January, the number of registered Republicans is up more than 11,000.
Now, do you guys think that that's a trend all over? The amount of registered Republicans being up that high? If you guys think that that's a trend, and if you think that Wyoming isn't the only state where that trend is showing itself, give me a thumbs up. Let me know what you guys think.
And there are more than 6,000 fewer registered Democrats. That indicates perhaps that a number of Democrats are re-registering as Republicans so they can vote in this primary. There are more than 4 times as many registered Republicans than Democrats in Wyoming. No surprise here that former President Trump carried this state with nearly 70% of the vote in 2020. Hageman has recently sided with the former president on his unsubstantiated claim that the election that year was rigged. Wyoming has already been voting in this one. Early voting, absentee voting, that's possible here. That started about 6 weeks ago, Griff. Back to you.
Rich Jetson, live for us in Wyoming. Rich, thank you.
All right, so there's that. All right. So now here it says, beyond representing the people of Wyoming, she said, we have a tremendous amount of work left to do on the January 6th committee. And also, though, I'm going to be making sure that people all around this country understand the stakes of what we're facing, understand the extent to which we've now got one major political party, my party, which has become a cult of personality. What do you guys think about that? That's interesting. We've now got one major political party, my party, which she's talking about Republicans, that have really become a cult of personality. That's interesting. That's a strong and bold claim, too. What do you guys think about that? So now here it says, we've got to get this party back to a place where we're embracing the values and the principles on which it was founded, and talking about fundamental issues of civics, fundamental issues of what does it mean to become a constitutional republic. Cheney, the daughter of former Republican Vice President Dick Cheney, attacked both Trump and the House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, the architect of her ousting from the party's House leadership in May of 2021 after she denounced the former president's false claims of a stolen election. She expressed her belief that the Republican Party today is in very bad shape. Now, that's interesting because people are saying the same thing about the Democrats. People say that the Democrats of today are in a very bad shape. But here you got a Republican saying that the Republicans are in a very bad shape too. I think she's just mad because she's a loser. So she's just saying anything. She wants somebody to feel sorry for her, give her some sympathy points. She got plenty of sympathy points as long as they come from a safety pin. You know what I'm saying? So now here it says Donald Trump has betrayed Republican voters. He's lied to them. Those who support him have lied to them and are using people's patriotism against them, she said, which is interesting. She's talking about using people's patriotism against them, with her father being the warmonger that he is. This woman's father is a war criminal, but she's sitting up here talking about people getting patriotism used against them. How many wars is her dad responsible for? You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, like, cut the game. I mean, I believe that Donald Trump continues to pose a very grave threat, a risk to our republic, and I think defeating him is going to require a broad and unified front of Republicans, Democrats, and independents. That's what I intend to be a part of. So now, I don't think that it's necessary for us to continue reading this particular article. And the reason why I don't feel that it's important for us to continue reading this particular article is because, for the most part, it goes on to say the exact same thing as that article that was in Vox. You know what I'm saying? So if I get some time, I'm gonna try to cover some more of this tomorrow. But I wanted to show you guys this article right here from Politico. How Team Trump systematically snuffed out Liz Cheney's reign in Congress. Systematically. They got her up out of there. Yeah, I agree. RG Titan, she need to take her L. Put some garlic salt on it and sit down somewhere. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's important to pay very close attention to the strategy that this group of dissatisfied people used to X out a politician. Because when it comes to us, we got a lot of X's that need to be marked. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate everybody who stuck around. To all the replay viewers, if you make it to this point, I definitely appreciate you guys. If you're not subscribed to the channel, take a moment. Make sure you smash that like button. If you're not subscribed to my backup channels, also take a moment. Make sure you hit that bell twice. Share the video out. And I will catch you all on the next video. All right? Peace.